company. And so, you know, and they were frustrated a little bit with some of the nibs that were out there. And I said, look, you'll spend a little more money, but if you really want to enjoy a good flex nib, go vintage. Now, back in the 1920s, to me, was the heyday of production for pens between Waterman, Conklin, and Schaefer. Those three companies back in the 1920s made some outstanding pens, and that's my absolute favorite era of fountain pens, the 1920s. Between the hard rubber, the red rippled hard rubber that Waterman used to use an awful lot, the overlays, the fantastic looking sterling silver and gold overlays on top of the hard rubber, exquisite looking and great to hold in the hand. The celluloids that they used, especially like you get into like a big old Schaefer with like a jade gorgeous celluloid on a flat top. To me, that is like cream of the crop of pens and some of my absolute favorites out there. And they usually came with a pretty doggone good nib. Schaefer tended to have a lot more stiff nibs, not quite as flex as Conklin. If you ever used like a number 2 Conklin on like an old crescent filler, fantastic flexible nibs. And so if you guys are in the flex, that's where I recommend that you go look if you're really into to flexible nibs. That seems to be the big craze here lately, that everybody seems to be going nuts over flex nibs. Why? I don't know. Fortunately, there are some good steel nibs out there that flex as well. And you can find some, but I still haven't found anything to me that comes even close to what you get out of like a Waterman number 12. That fantastic number 2 wet noodle flexible nib that you can find from time to time. So those are all, for the most part, gold nibs from that far back. And vintage started using a lot of steel nibs as you went forward. And some of them had some great performance, some not so much. There are some vintage names that I absolutely, because of personal experience, I will never buy another one. You know, like a Wherever, some of the garbage, the lower tier cheap pens. They're just some brands I'll never invest in. I'll never spend the money unless it's dirt cheap, just because it's not worth it to me. Because their nibs are hard, their nibs are scratchy, they're hard to smooth out. They're just not fun to use or write with, and I spent a lot of time on those. When you start looking into the 1940s, into the 1950s, one of the great innovations that I really enjoyed was Esterbrook. With Esterbrook nibs, those little screw-out nibs, and the massively wide variety that they had was just outstanding. If you liked a flexible nib, they had it. If you wanted a shorthand nib, a Gregg shorthand nib, they had it. If you wanted extra fine, they got them. You want something that's going to be a more of a manifold nib and hard, they got it. So those were, to me, a great innovation in nibs when they screw out like an entire combination, or just like a housing with the nib and the feet all together in one, and they're swappable. So if people are into nibs and they're into wanting to experiment with nibs, get an old 1940s Esterbrook. Or if you want to get into the new Estes, if you like the newer Esterbrooks and how they feel in your hand, there is a $40 adapter out there that you can add to them, where you can put all these nice old Esterbrook nibs that you can still find, some as cheap as $15. I've been finding them at pen shows, $10 sometimes, on up to $45. So, yeah, I mean, you can invest as much as you want or as little as you want in the nibs. I've got a number 8 titanium nib, and I mean, that's a $150 nib, above what the normal price was. So it was a $150 upgrade to get it, but it writes spectacularly well. But when you're talking about fine, medium, extra fine, I can only give my personal preference, and I've pretty much given that. Extra fines don't impress me. They do very little for me. Occasionally I'll find one that writes good, lately, believe it or not, I found some Lamy style Chinese cheap manufactured extra fine nibs that I actually went, you know what? That's not so bad. It's better than some of the, the more expensive. Better than a buddy of mine let me borrow a nice a Visconti, a $900 Visconti pen with an extra fine nib on it. That $1 Chinese pen with an extra fine nib, to me, wrote better than that Visconti with an extra fine nib on it for $900. One of them I really like lately, Larry, is one I just sent you just recently. It had an extra fine nib on it. And I said, you know what? That's probably the best extra fine, cheap Chinese nib I think I've used in a long, long time.
Well, for me, it worked great. You know, nobody up with me. Yeah, just on your time. I already did a review on it. We'll post it later, but yeah, it worked out real good.
To give you a heads up too on that particular pen, Larry, when I bought it, it was advertised as a Jinhao 248. Other people were saying it's a 166.
Yes, they go under both numbers. I've seen them under both.
And I think AliExpress had them as a 166.
Yes.
Everywhere else I've looked on eBay and on Amazon, all had them listed as 248.
Yeah, I saw the same thing.
So depending upon where you look, you'll see two different numbers. And man, people got offended when I told them it was a 248 because that's what I bought it as. That's what it was sold as. And so I said, hey, it's a Jinhao 248. That's a 166. Amazon, got it wrong. It's more than one source. I'm sorry. More than one site said it was a 248. I'm just going by what I bought. So anyway, what else you want to know about nibs? What do you guys want to talk about? I mean, is it worth the upgrade to a gold nib nowadays? I'll give you my humble opinion.
No.
Actually, let's roll it. Let's freeze right there. Okay, that's a good topic to talk about. We got an opinion going on here. Another one from Stan. Does anybody disagree with that? If so, why? Some say it writes smoother than a steel nib. Some disagree. Anybody want to comment on that?
I can comment on this. The tipping is the same on both steel nibs and gold nibs. The only difference is gold is the softer material, which means the nib might be a little bouncier. That's the only real difference. The other thing I want to, Troy said that as long as the nib writes well, it doesn't matter if it's gold and steel. There is one little exception. Unless you're using an iron gold ink or ink of that kind, that ink preferably used with gold nibs. Gold nibs don't corrode, steel does. And as far as
I always thought it was the other way around.
No, it's preferable to use iron gold inks with gold nibs. Yes.
I would like to know why you don't like the extra fines at all, and I'm with you on that. I have one or two, but they're just like needles and nails and stuff like that. And I'm generally speaking medium and above, but I'd like to know why you keep buying the extra fines if you don't like them.
Good question.
Well, for me, sometimes the last batch I got with extra fine nibs, they were listed as fine. And when they showed up in the mail, it said XF. Well, that's not what it said. Well, I can either roll with it and play with it and see if I enjoy it or not. And if I don't, they're getting negative feedback for the purchase because I got it wrong. But I don't keep buying them on purpose other than for giveaway. I've got a little basket that sits back here behind me. But then again, on top of it, I've thrown some ink and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, but I've got, these are all pens for giveaway. And when you spend like this right here, it should look really familiar to most people. It looks a lot like a Lamy, like a Lamy Vista. This is like
the Vista or is it the Safari
no,
All-Star?
Well, it's neither. Actually, this was like a 68-cent pen that I got off from Temu, TEMU.com.
I bought from them too.
And believe it or not, that actually writes fairly well. I've got one inked up and been carrying it as my secondary pen, and it actually did halfway decent. So I'm willing to give it away because it writes good enough to be able to give somebody as their first experience or foray into fountain pens.
Yeah, I bought the Jinhao 82 on Temu for $250. Writes very well, fine new.
Yep. And then this was another giveaway pen that I picked up for, I think I got this off from wish.com. And this was like 99 cents. And I think these, I can't remember if this came with fine or extra fine. I think I told it I wanted fine. And these actually, for the money, is actually a decent pen. I was kind of impressed. They're better. That's one thing I'll say about a lot of these Chinese manufacturers is they've gotten better here recently. 5 or 6 years ago, they were horrible on a lot of them. It was hit or miss. Now they're getting better. So I feel more comfortable getting, other than like a Jinhao 992 was always fairly reliable. And if it wasn't, sometimes I get them where I'd have to pull out the feed and then the nib and reconfigure it, put it back in order to get it to write. And I'd feel confident giving someone one of those pens for a giveaway.
So you're spending 99 cents on the pen. What is shipping?
It depends. Like Temu, free shipping on everything as long as you spend $10.
A minimum $10 order, yes, and a free shipping.
Right. So I can't complain where I'll spend $30 with them at a time and free shipping on everything. So I don't expect a lot, but I did one order with them and I went, okay, not bad. That was worth the risk. Some stuff, yeah, okay, is it worth $1, $2, $3, whatever you spend on it? You know, you get an earwax cleaner, you know, a little tool, or you know, some cheap jewelry, or other trinkets that you can pick up for personal grooming, or whatever you want. You know, you happen to find there. I went shopping specifically for pens and ink. I've got a little bottle of ink up here that I bought in a gray. Nah, didn't like the ink. It's it doesn't even come close to, let's say, like this Diamine Earl Grey. I was hoping to find that it was going to look a little like this. Now it's really, really very light. So I mean, I can. They don't have 49 other shades for me to look at as well. But it was hit or miss on some of their inks. I figured for $3 for a little bottle about that big, we'll give it a shot. So yeah, it was free shipping on orders over $10, $10 minimum order. So I said, yeah, why not? Whereas on Wish, you actually do spend a shipping amount on every single pen, unless you order a sufficient amount where they combine your shipping into one flat fee. But like I said, I bought them for giveaway, so I'm going to make sure that I'm not overpaying. And I'm talking, 68 cents or $1. And just the other day, we were at Waffle House last Sunday, because it was myself and my well, he hadn't just turned 10. He was like the day before he turned 11. I was with Benjamin at a Waffle House. For those of you like probably on the West Coast or in other areas of the country, you probably don't know what a Waffle House is. But it's essentially, you know what it is? It's like hibachi grill for Southerners, where eggs and bacon, hash browns, and waffles, that kind of thing.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, so, we're at the register, swipe my debit card, got to sign the little receipt. She goes, oh, that's a cool pen. Well, you know what? If you like it, here you go. And it was a Jinhao 248. And it's the very one that I used in my video when I did the review of it. And so now some waitress from a Waffle House has got that pen. And it wrote well enough that I didn't mind A, giving it away, or B, using another one. As a matter of fact, what I did with the next one is I ripped off the nib, put that little extra fine nib in a drawer, and I had purchased some Lamy nibs. And they were like aftermarket. They weren't made by Lamy. They were probably some Chinese made nibs. A 1.1 and a 1.5 stub. I think my 1.1 is already on another pen similar to this in my drawer. And so I've been using a 1.5 stub. And Dan, you're about to receive a letter written with that 1.5 stub nib. And I actually like the way it wrote because it's not as wide quite as a 1.5 stub. I remember when I first wrote with a 1.1 stub years ago, I didn't like it. As a matter of fact, there's somebody who's wearing a blue shirt and a gray hat on this call who had said he was looking for to buy a TWSBI 1.1 stub from somebody. And I said, you know what, I got one here. I'm not even using it. So I sent it to him. Then later on, I actually bought one because later on, I discovered more as I was writing more and more letters, and I had played with 1.1 stubs. I'm thinking, I like the way my handwriting looks with a 1.1 stub, a little better than with a medium nib, and certainly better than a fine nib. And I said, I'm liking that, which is one of the reasons I sprung for this little Waterman, because it had a factory stub #2 nib on it. So, and actually writes pretty good. It writes much better than the other one that I've got, I've had this one for years. This one I actually sent to England, and Steph Jackson, with Grandmia Pens, restored that one for me. Whereas I got this one, locally from antiquedigger.com. But it had a stub nib. So I said, good, I'm writing more and more with stubs here lately. So it'll be interesting to try that #2 old gold semi-flex stub nib from Waterman, and just to see how well it does. So I'm always looking for something a little different.
I came to a little bit late, thanks to my computer, and I didn't realize we were talking about nibs. But I have a question, Troy. You probably
Sure.
could answer this. What about these double stack nibs? What is the purpose of them, and how do they work?
I'll be honest, I have not used them. I've seen them. I've seen some videos with a demonstration of them, and I understand that it's supposed to give you a smoother and possibly a wider line in whatever direction that you're writing. Sort of like an architect nib will give you a thinner line horizontally, but a much thicker line vertically, or unless I've got that
The other way around.
So horizontal is the thicker line, and
Yes.
vertically is the thinner one.
Yes.
Yeah, I know it was one way or the other. I couldn't remember which. I've seen them and I've heard people rave about them. I just haven't seen where that interested me enough to invest in it, to try it. I've got several pen shows I'm going to this year that I'm going to be on the lookout, because I keep seeing them more and more. And I think I just saw something on Instagram shared by Heinz Pens about a double stack nib. And I don't know if you're just tinkering with them or what. Yeah, so I'll hit up Jim and maybe some others and actually get to play with them a little bit. Personally, I don't get it. Never used it, so I don't get it yet.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I was wondering, what is the purpose of having a double stack?
Isn't that what Sailor calls a Zoom nib, I think?
That may very well be it, what Sailor does. I've never used one of those either. I've heard people talk about it.
I think one of them depends. If you hold the pen more of an upright position, you get a finer line, and the more of an angle you hold it, you get a wider line. I don't know if that's the Zoom nib or
that's a Zoom nib, I think.
Yeah.
Or naginata togi nib.
Is that a stack nib, Stan?
No.
No.
All right. Well, this may sound like heresy to some people. I'm not a Sailor fan. I know Joe's not on, so I can say this. I don't like Sailor.
I don't own a Sailor at all.
We have several of them. I've got a Sailor Prophet, which is a 1911. Matthew has a 1911. I've got a 1911 large, and I hate the nib on it. I thought I was going to like it. I've borrowed someone's King of Pens. I do still want, actually on my radar is a King of Pen in black ebonite. I still, because I love ebonite. Ebonite's my absolute favorite material for pens. I've got a couple.
Stop right there, please. Time out, time out. I'm still not getting it. I'm still not feeling it. The big deal about ebonite. Heck, you know, a regular acrylic to me as good as ebonite. Come on, let's get with the real deal here. And I just don't. Am I missing something? Help me, fill me in what I'm missing.
Well, for me, Larry, it's the look and the feel.
Ebonite
Yes,
feels a lot
feel.
better if you
I love the
smear a
feel.
little rucci on it.
Yeah. For me, Larry, it's the look and the feel. These old black. Go ahead, Dan. Well, sometimes it depends. If you get something from India, it's going to smell a little funky anyway.
Yes, it does.
I've got some pens made in India that just have that. You can tell, yeah, that was made in India. I don't even have to look. I can go, yep, India, because they use a lot of the same material. But for me, Larry, it's the feel, the texture, like an old red Ripple Waterman 55 or 58. And I can pull some of these out here and show them too, but I'd have to, turn my back to y'all. The look and the feel of those, Larry, to me, there's nothing like it. When I went to the last pen show I went to was DC last year in August, and there was a seller from India that had, and I meant to do a review on this pen, but I never did. But in India, for some reason, they still make a lot of eyedropper pens. And this was a black ebonite, oversized eyedropper with a titanium nib on it. And it actually wrote really, really well compared to some of the other stuff I've seen that came out from them. And it's from the same company. If you ever seen Fig Boot's video that he did on the world's worst, or the worst pen review he ever did, he said in that, from the same company, because they tried to get me to buy one of those. And I'm like, nah, no, thank you. I'm glad I didn't buy it. At least he didn't pay for his. But they actually had that great big black ebonite pen in a matte finish. And to me, the look and the feel. My favorite Jim Hines pen is an ebonite pen that he did in a German swirl. The texture, the tactile sensation is a little bit different to me. The look and the feel, especially on a good oversized ebonite pen, to me is just my favorite. Mike, they probably smell an awful lot when you're turning them, from what I've been told.
They do. They smell when you're turning them, and if they're new pens, like Dan had a pen here he was looking at, a new pen will tend to have a little bit of smell yet too. But once they've had a little time, and even at that point, they're not that bad once they've been turned. But while you're turning them, yeah, they are a little smelly. I have to get permission from my wife to run ebonite.
You can make them smell good again by polishing them, rubbing them on your shirt or something,
No, put it this way: the two pens I bought from you, Mike, were ebonite, and that's what hooked me. When you had them up, that big black ebonite and polished ebonite, it was gorgeous, and getting it and using it, and I was like, oh, I like this. Because just the tactile feel, Larry, that's for me personally. That's just my personal opinion.
I guess from now on, what I'm going to do is when I buy anything other than the ebonite, I'm just have to start smelling pens. Okay, I don't like it. I forget how they write, forget how they look. That smells pretty good. I'm going to take this one right here. How's that? I'm teasing. Go ahead.
Ebonite, when it comes to feeds, I couldn't care less if it's ebonite or not. I've had some really cruddy ebonite feeds, and I've had some really cruddy plastic feeds too. So it depends on who makes it and how.
I have 3 pens with ebonite feeds, and I love them all. Very wet pens. Right, very
What
wet.
are they, Stan?
I prefer ebonite feeds to plastic feeds. And if you're into flex writing, ebonite feeds are better and will be wetter and will keep up more than plastic feeds. In fact, I have one. It's a Ken Wright Heritage with their Ultra Flex nib. It's a very nice pen. Very nice writer, piston filler.
Yeah,
And it keeps up.
I like it. The can write like you have. I have one, and I really I put the Ultra Flex on it, and he writes very well.
At least they tell you right in the name what it can do.
Mhm.
So
You're on, Mike.
I'm on.
somebody else go.
Oh,
You're just larger than life.
I have a Sailor here, pocket pen, from the 80s. The nib is amazing, man. 18 karat gold nib. Got it fairly cheap, but the section, grip section, is rusted through. There are holes on it. I didn't notice at first, but they are visible. Troy, you don't have any spare parts for Sailors?
No, but I got some Sailors I'm willing to, never have again in my collection. No, and that's just me. I know Joe's a big fan of Sailors and Sailor nibs, and I know people
I
who
like
like
Sailors too.
Yeah, I like it.
extra fine nibs, especially like their nibs.
This one's
And
medium.
yeah, just
So,
for me, I've never been impressed.
Ian, so let's elaborate on this, Mr. Troy, for a minute. Which would you think is a better pen, the Sailor versus, I'm going to step on some toes here, I'm waiting for that to come back, Pelican lady, and here she comes. Which is a better pen and why? And then I'll let Lana elaborate on that in a minute. Go ahead, Troy.
All right, for me personally, this is in general, I like Western nibs better than Asian nibs. That's overall just my personal experiences. I've had much better experience with, it's amazing. It's all Axis powers involved here, looking over my history. But I like German-made nibs and maybe some French-made nibs as well, better than I prefer most stuff coming out of Asia. Pilot makes some decent nibs. I mean, I've got some platinums that are not bad, that are acceptable to me. Pilot, yeah, I can deal with them. Yeah, most everything I've had out of a Pilot's been reliable and no major complaints. But in general, I much prefer American-made nibs and European-made nibs. That's just my personal preference because of the writing, the smoothness of them. What I will say is Pelican. My philosophy on Pelican has been, I thought that I was going to be in love because I like oversized pens. The M1000 to me was what I wanted to get. Then again, I made the same mistake when I was looking into Mont Blancs. I went right for the 149. I don't like the 149 as much as I like the 146. It surprised me, but I like the size, the feel, and the writing of it. And M1000, great big honking nib. It seems like it would do great. And it was okay. I said, but you know what? Not quite what I was hoping. Let me try the 800. So I got an M800. Yeah, I like it a little better, maybe. And then I bought my wife in M600. And that to me was the perfect size in a Pelican. And the writing was outstanding. So I bought myself an M600. And actually I bought it used from Joe Pike. If you guys ever run across him, I know he is actually going to be at the St. Louis Pen Show. So I'll get a chance to actually meet with him face to face for once, rather than corresponding. But I bought an M600 in a fine nib from him. And I didn't know how much, if I'd like it or not, but considering Pelican seems to go a little wider, just on the wide side. Their mediums maybe sometimes more like a broad. So I've never stepped it up to try their broad nib because I said their medium nib is plenty broad for me. So when I tried the fine, I said, you know what, that's not bad. I really like that. And the size of it to me was perfect. And I've got one inked up right now in my rotation. So I still use that because it still has a good ink capacity. It still writes really well. And the size is very comfortable to hold and write with. But so that's my personal take.
See, for me, here's where we're different. I really love the Pelican and the Sailor. It works well for me. It does everything I need it to do, and they look good and they feel good in the hands. It's just a preference that people have, and that's
Right.
why we're all different. So, I mean, is there anything wrong with Pelican? No. Sailor? No. Gold nibs? No. Do you have the
You're
money
right.
to buy them? No. Well, there.
Well, there you go,
That's
Larry. That's a thing I love about this hobby. Everybody has their own personal preference, and there's plenty out there to satisfy everybody's preference. You know, like Joe loves extra fine nibs. There's plenty of manufacturers out there that can meet his needs. I don't like them, so okay, I won't invest in them on anything other than a cheap giveaway pen. That's just me personally. You know, there are people who have their favorite color. You can find it at a pen show. You can find your favorite color in just about anything in any price range. You know, I was just showing you these 68 cents up to, you know, my most expensive is you know, over 3 times my mortgage kind of thing. So
And how does it write?
actually it writes well. Unfortunately, it burps on me. It's the most expensive probably is that Waterman 20 from like about 1905, somewhere in there. And it's got that huge number 10 nib on it. And it's great to just have it in my collection. I wish I hadn't played with it quite as much because I kind of cracked the cap just a little bit in playing with it. But it's one of those, for a lot of people, it's just something they have in their collection. And I'm the kind, I got it. I'm going to play with it. Yeah, baby. I spend the money. I'm playing with it. But I couldn't get it to stop burping on me. But when it wrote great. It just, I just didn't like the ink splot right there on my page. I said, nah, that kind of sucks. So it'll sit in my collection.
Hey, Troy.
See, now, my latest one has been the Mont Blanc 149. I got a few of those. Love them, dynamite, ultimate, super bad boy. In the story, don't care. This is my baby. And the Brustlet and Kiss Grits, because I love this pen. It's just dynamite. It always has been from day 1, and today is day 5, and I still love it. But then, yes, the one you mentioned, the next Mont Blanc 146, I believe in it. You mentioned, Troy,
Right.
is that right?
Yep.
146?
Yep.
That's
The
another
next step
dynamite. That's
Right.
another one. I love it. I have quite a few of these different sizes. I love all of them. They all, for me, work really, really well. So would I trade them? Nah. But then I guess our favorite pen is the Vanishing Point right here. You know, it's so practical. It's so handy to use, just like a ballpoint. I mean, you have to worry about pulling the cap off and have to worry about screwing the cap on and blah, blah, blah. You just punch and go and twist and just back up, or you punch again, just a little different. So
that's what
yeah,
I'm hoping. I'm hoping to experience another one of those sometime soon, Frank. Whenever they actually distribute them.
Hey, Troy.
Yes, sir.
This year's VP, you mean? This year's.
Hi, Frank.
Howdy. How are you?
Good. Frank, time out.
Will was asking him.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Will. You're next, Frank. Don't go away. Go ahead, Will.
Does
Get some help, Frank. Don't go away. Go ahead, Will.
Does Mont Blanc precious resin make you feel all warm and fuzzy like the ebonite does?
All right,
you know it does, baby. You know it does, Will.
You know what? When you look it up in the dictionary, when you look up the words precious resin in a dictionary, it says see expensive plastic.
See,
There you go.
Malt
Any way you can put it, any way you can say it, it's still precious, baby. It's still rock and roll, and that's the end of the story. You can't beat it. And next, no teasing. So can take it. Yeah.
Yeah, it to me, it just means expensive plastic. It's okay to me. It's nothing to write home about in terms of the plastic. I mean, don't get me wrong. Mont Blanc does make some great pens, and the first one I ever got was a 32 from like the 1970s, and that in the 70s is when it was really big with Waterman and some Schaeffers and Mont Blancs and some Lamies to go with a skinny, the thinner pens. And so the 32 was my first Mont Blanc. And so going up to a 149, when I had the cash to do it, I remember I bought it from Mike Bloom. Mike Bloom was at the, I can't remember if I was at the DC. Yes, I was at the DC show, my first DC show. And he was there. And Mike Bloom, for those of you who know him, he has all kinds of Mont Blancs. That was what he was specializing in. And unfortunately, the one I had some nib issues. It wrote horribly. I went back to my hotel room and I inked it up. I was like, wow, this sucks. And I had just taken a nib class. Let's see who was teaching that nib class. Richard Bender. It was teaching that nib class. And I was like, do I want to play with a 149 and see what I can do with it? I monkeyed with it some, and I corresponded with Mike Bloom, and I said, Mike, it's writing terrible. He said, well, if you get it to a nibsmith, I'll pay the bill for that. Well, I said, and I was like, I'm not going to be defeated by this. I'm going to keep playing with it. So
What's that new one you got, Troy? Wasn't it that brand new 149 that you just went in and
it wasn't brand new. It was reconditioned, and it was factory reconditioned, because that's what Mike was specializing in, was pens that came back from the factory had been reconditioned by Mont Blanc, but it wrote horrible. So I had to do a little nib work on it, and I got it so it writes okay now. I didn't send it off to anybody just because I'd seen enough videos online and tinkered enough on my own. I was able to get it to perform. But I will tell you that when I finally bought a 146, to me, the 146 just wrote better and was a better writing experience, better feel in my hand. That's just me personally. And that's why it goes back to what we were just talking about, Larry. Everybody has their own personal preferences. And that's what's so cool about this hobby, is you can find stuff that you like. And just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's garbage. And just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's somebody else's treasure.
Well, nowadays, I mean, and this is just me talking, there's no reason why anybody can't afford a pen. I mean, forget the bells and whistles. If you eliminate that, just what I go for first is that the heart of the nib, that has to be to my satisfaction, or to me, that pen is no good anymore. So then, if it doesn't have all those bells and whistles, let's say it's a 99-cent pen that's got a great nib on it, fine, you're good to go. That's how I look at it. Some people don't agree with that.
I've got pens I spent hundreds of dollars on that were very disappointing. And then I just went, this is nothing to be proud of. It's nothing that I would want to give somebody. It's nothing that I'm glad I spent that money on, because I've got pens that I spent a couple dollars on that write much better than some of those. So
yeah.
Oh, my son Benjamin just came in. Here's my son Ben. He just turned 11.
Hi, Ben. Happy birthday, Ben.
Thank you.
And he wanted to show you guys the pen he just got for his birthday.
Ah, look at that.
Can somebody identify what that is?
How 159?
It's a roller ball.
It is. This one.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a roller ball. And can anybody real quick tell what the model is? Just it's a Waterman. It's a Phileas from the 1990s. Now, my first real fountain pen was a Waterman Phileas, and it was my only fountain pen for over 20 years. And so I'm a big fan of these. obviously, and found I got a drawer full of them. So I started out with just one, and I got one in every color that they came in. But out of the 1990s, the Waterman Phileas to me was like one of Waterman's best products, and it's a great workhorse pen. It was very affordable. But so yeah, this was Ben's birthday present for his, and this one has little Travelers Insurance logo right there on the clip. So, but Ben is into ballpoints. So that was his birthday present, was an old Waterman Phileas and a rollerball.
Okay. So let's go to Dan. Any comments on any of their stuff?
Oh, I always got comments. I try not to make too many of them. Some of these people don't get to hardly ever talk. But yeah, I got comments. Several things. I've been wanting to say this. I said something to Mike a while back. I've got 7 of Mike's pens, Mike Green, and I think they're all ebonite. Oh, no, with one exception. One was a gift that was not ebonite. And he started experimenting with the cigar-shaped pens. And
really, did you, Mike?
Yeah,
I did, yeah.
I had him with the Nico ebonite, which is a Japanese made ebonite, make a real small one. And of all his pens, I love them all dearly. But this little baby, if you want a small, somebody talked about a pocket pen. If you want a small pen, this is a really small one. It has a number 5 nib in it. This is his best workmanship that I've seen in his pens. None of them are bad, but I mean, this is just like, there's something about this one. It just seems to be just so nice and tight and perfect. It's great in the hand. If you have a need for writing small, there you go. Isn't that beautiful? If you have a need for writing small, the smaller nibs and the finer actually kind of help. And in my early morning, somebody said, why would you want an extra fine nib? For writing in your Bible. It really helps to have a really fine nib.
It's not tearing the pages?
Pardon?
It's not tearing the pages?
No, I'm very gentle and careful. Believe it or not, usually the paper they make Bibles with is it's thin, but it's tough. It's some good, tough paper. I don't know what it is, but it's usually good. But I find myself writing upside down all the time with most of my pens in my Bible, because you get the teeny tiny little stuff, But if you want, anybody's looking for a really, really good extra small pen, this has the best feel. It's tight. It's beautiful. Smells great. And writes like a dream. It's got a number 5 nib in it. You can get different nibs, obviously, but I don't know if you can see that. But it's just an excellent pen, and it won't break the bank either. So anyway, I like extra fine. I like mediums, broad. I love the 1.1s. My buddy Troy sent me some samples. He heard me and talking with Will on one of our messaging sessions, and Will was looking at some grapefruit ink. And
okay, KWZ,
yeah, and I was talking to and I ordered a bottle of it, and I just love it. It's a great orange. But then, but Troy sent me these samples, and one of them, Noodlers in the KWZ, but one of them in here was this bad black moccasin. Ooh. If you want a black ink, you want something creamy, smooth, and shiny, and dark and beautiful, you got to try some Noodler's Bad Black Moccasin ink. I get 10% for every customer.
Hi, Dee. Go ahead.
So I've used that. And I've used that Bad Black Moccasin in modern pens as well as even in vintage pens. And I haven't had any issues with it. I know Noodlers with some people has a bad rap, especially for vintage. Mm-hmm. I've never had problems with Noodlers. That Bad Black Moccasin is not horrible to clean, unlike anything Bay State, whether it's grape or cranberry or blue, which are a bear to clean. That bad black moccasin isn't too bad to clean, and I've used it in like I said, vintage pens with no problem. I kept some Esterbrook's on my desk for a long time with a desk pen. Wrote great, no problems with that at all. So I found that to be a pretty well-behaved ink.
You guys all shamed me into the Bay State Blue. Boy, Larry really let me have it in one letter. But anyway, I
love Bay State
this
Blue.
is my Bay State pen. It's steel. It's a heavy. It's a Graf vom Faber-Castell, and it's got an extra small. I think this is a number five nib. It's a black nib, a black pen, steel, and it's got a converter in it. So I figured Bay State can just do whatever it wants to. I won't even notice it staining it. It'll look just fine.
Yeah, that my Bay State Blue stays in this old FPR muffed.
Yeah.
Yeah, Troy, I got one of them muff pens too, full of Bay State Blue.
Yeah, and I've about run this one out already, and it needed some nib work. I really had to smooth this one out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Troy, I put a little O-ring in mine, and that O-ring, when you screw down the grip section, it kind of compresses that O-ring a little bit.
Yep, I actually tried that with Platinum Preppy.
Yeah, and actually it helps. In my opinion, it kind of helps seal. That O-ring is compressed just barely enough where it kind of helps seal the cap on it. So,
well, I know there's a lot more screw threads on the muff because it was meant to be an eyedropper.
Right.
But I also used an awful lot of silicone grease on this one. And because I've got a desk set here where I've got a Waterman 67 on one side, and it's got these nice little horns. What I've been doing, I have a problem with this muff that when I set it down for a while, I don't have enough ink in the feed, and I got to keep trying to get ink to come back out. Come on, right, doggone you, right. And, I got to keep doing that. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to leave it right like this, and I'm going to put it right in this little horn, and it sits right on my desk set, right next to my Waterman 67 desk pen. So I've got one of those, and I use this in my checkbook all the time. Yes, I still keep a paper checkbook. And all this desk where I'm sitting is where I work for a living. So I've got notebooks here on my desk, and I use fountain pens almost exclusively at work on any notebook that I've got. And I got to-do lists for work for a particular project. I need to do all these little things on there, my checklist. All right, now the next project, I've got all these little things, and that's what I use stuff like that for. Oh,
Okay,
you were talking about small pens. Go ahead, Larry.
Frank, please. Frank, unmute.
Unmute.
There he is. Okay. Frank, don't you carry Sailors?
Yes, I do.
Which is the most popular brand in your department that Sailor is real hot? Or are all of them about on the same level? Which is the most popular Sailor that you carry?
It depends on people's taste. They make two main ranges, the 1911 and the Pro Gear. Everybody knows what they are. The 1911 basically is the torpedo-shaped traditional pen, and then the Pro Gear is the flat tops, and different sizes, including the King in each one. So it really depends on people's preferences. Honestly, I sell each of them about the same amount. So they're all popular. They all do well, and the ink does well. So yeah, right now, the newest thing from Sailor is their their olive green 1911 pen of the year. The pen of the year this year is an olive green demo. It's really nice. You might have seen it. It's on my site. It's olive green. Last year was the soda pop blue. Last year was the Pro Gear and the soda pop blue. This year it's the olive in the 1911 torpedo traditional shaped.
What's the puppy's name?
This is Dee Dee. Lannis, I know this looked a lot like your baby. We went
Yeah.
over this before. I know. This is Dee Dee. She's a Bichon mix. She's going to be 5 this summer.
Oh,
Yep.
little Digo.
Bijons and
Looks like your
Maltese.
baby. I remember seeing a picture of yours online. Yeah, when you still had her. Yes.
Now,
Yeah,
Openita
they look very
Bonnie
much
to come
alike,
out.
the Bijons and the Maltese poodles, and
Uh-huh.
they're very similar looking.
I'm trying to keep her at bay. We've had a little accident in the kitchen, but we're okay. I'm just trying to keep her away from
Hey.
what's on the floor.
Troy can bring out Barney, and then I'll go to Liz, and she can bring out a moose. Remember those big old antler things? Yeah, huge, humongous moose. Yeah, so there. So okay, so on your sailors, back to your sailors, do you have the steel nibs or both steel and gold? Frank,
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
do you have the steel nib and the gold nibs you offer, or just the steel nib?
I generally stick with the gold nibs with the sailors. I tend to offer the higher end sailors. Yeah, they do better. Yeah.
And so, Frank, are you a extra fine, or medium nib type person?
I'm a medium broad type of person, especially with Asian pens. I'm more broad. Yeah. I like German mediums. And like Troy said, the Pelicans really do tend to run wet. So if you like a nice solid medium, I'm getting lashed over here with a tail, but it's okay. You can, if you like standard, European German mediums, honestly, a Pelican fine will actually suit your needs. Depends on, of course, gold nib. Depends on what type of ink you're using. Wetter ink, drier ink will be better. But a gold fine point Pelican will do you just fine if you like medium point nibs. Yeah.
You don't sell Pelicans, do you?
Oh, I guess I do. Yeah, I do.
Oh, do you? I didn't know that.
That's okay. There's a lot of brands people don't realize I have. I got
I
over
guess
50
not.
brands. No, it's okay. There's over 50 brands, and I tout what I can, I bring what I can, and I can't bring it all. So
Are you getting in the new green one that's coming out?
The green demo 800? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the Pelican for a minute. I'm kind of sticking out. I do love Pelican. I'm still looking at the 600 and I believe it's the 400. Yeah. You carry those, right, Frank?
Sure. Right now, Pelican tends to release, versions every so often. Right now, traditional colors, in the 400, 600, the green, the black, the red, Other than that, there's nothing really new limited edition out there right now, other than this green 800 transparent coming out. They'll tend to do like one, maybe two of a 600 or 800 per year. The rose quartz ink is finally in. The new ink of the year is rose quartz. I actually have it. It's actually not bad. It's actually nice. It's actually
pale?
It's actually darker than the bottle packaging represents. At least I'm using it in a vintage Schaefer, and it actually looks more like a dusty rose. It reminds me of like a dirty pink, so it's actually nice. It reminds me of another Greek ink that I have right now. I'm not going to say the name, but it's the Greek ink I have that's like a dirty pink. It's from a company. It's named after Greek gods. This one's called Aphrodite. So I'll just leave it at that. And I think most of you know the ink's been pretty popular. So it really does remind me of Aphrodite ink from this company that I sell a lot of inks for. They do great inks. And it reminds me of that. And yeah, it's actually darker than I thought it was going to be. So I can't wait to see the pen. And the pen will probably be out, September, October when we have the hub. And hopefully we'll have the hub this year at a regular time.
I was surprised they put out the green one when the ink of the year is rose quartz. I thought that we would see that in the spring instead of the green demonstrator.
They always tend to follow this pattern. They release the ink in the spring, and then they release the pen in the fall. They usually stick to that pattern. They've been doing that for several years now. So like I said, I think the rose quartz pen will probably be out there sometime for the hub. That's usually when it comes.
Now, we're going back to Frank again. Do you have the Pelican? Is it the 205 and a broad nib?
Oh, sure. I have a spare. I have spare 200 nibs.
Look at the
I have spare
puppy.
200 steel and gold plated nibs. And I always have the 200 series pens available.
Aw.
And I tend to carry the 600s and 800s as the special editions come available, because I can always get a traditional Sugaran 600, 800, from Chart Pack. And since they're in Mass and I'm here in Jersey, I get it the next day. So I order to order basically. Depends.
Larry, I can tell you, if you like a 149, an M200 is going to be a really big step down in terms of size and use.
She's coming.
The 200 to me actually turned out, I thought, too small for me, and it wrote
It's
okay.
a very small pen.
Right. I was surprised that when I got it, how small it was, and it wrote fine. I don't have a problem with it. For somebody with smaller hands, it's probably fantastic. But if you like the 149, then the 200s are probably going to be a little small for you for your personal preference. Just throwing that out, as opposed to it's very similar, not too far off in their M120 that they came out with a while back when they re-released that
The iconic blue.
Yeah, the iconic blue. That's right. It's about the same size. So if you've tried that M120, it's not far off. I took a step up to the 400, and even the 400 to me was a little small. So if you like the oversize, the 400 is going to be a lot smaller than you used to. The 420 I picked up when I was in Nassau, Bahamas at a jewelry store. I actually they had a bunch of pens. They had no clue what they had. So I stood there for like a half an hour, 45 minutes, giving them a tutorial on fountain pens. So they cut me a really good deal on this with a sterling silver. It's still, I mean, I love this pen. I like it better than the other one, but it's still just a hair on the small side. Whereas when and that's one of the reasons why I went with the 1000. I thought that, going with the 1000, I figured, all right, that's going to be great. But it actually, was not quite as good. So I went down to that 800. And I thought, that's going to be a little bit better. No, but that's when I went down to the 600 for my wife when they had the lavender and
White.
The white and lavender. And beautiful pen. I wanted to keep it for myself, but now I bought it for her. I'm going to have to give it to her. And that's when I went about that M600 for myself, which for me was for a preferable size, which really surprised me. I did not think that I would really like the 600 better than either the 800 or the 1000, but that's all personal preference, But if you like the 149, if you're looking at the 200s are a lot smaller than you think. And it may surprise you. So if they got them at the Dallas Pen Show, next time you go, try them out before you invest the money in a 200.
So this is the 400. This is the 600. This is the 800. And this one, this is the roller ball, so that's still a little bit different. But yeah, the 400 is going to be small for. I'm going to say it's going to be small for most guys.
Yeah.
And, if you've got larger hands, maybe the 800 is a place to go. But 600 is a really good size too.
What do you write with, Lannis? What's your preference? And when you write, I know you write with all these, but what's your preference?
Are you asking about which size of the pen or the nib?
Yeah. Well, how about a little bit of both? I was asking about the size of the pen, but the nib, that's interesting too.
Well, I do like the M600 a lot, but I also like pens with a little bit of girth too. So the 8 is good as well. I only have one M1000, and it's big. It's really, really big, and I've said this before, but it makes me write differently.
It
And that's
does.
because there's a little bit of spring in
There is.
the size of the nib that the M1000 has. So
And it sings.
It's really
It
odd
sings to
that
you.
how it makes you, how you write differently with some different size of nibs. But I really like the 6 and the 8.
What about the nib size?
Pretty much medium gal all the way and larger.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of, well, I actually have a couple of nibs that actually I was surprised that they were Pelican finds, and I don't know if that was the only thing available when I wanted to pick up the pen or what, but I definitely, I like a broader line, and so I like to go with the medium German, pen kind of thing. And I do have, some of the smaller ones and some of the larger ones, but if I'm writing a letter, I find that the medium is the best to write a letter in. And even that, you just have to write a little bit bigger,
If someone's looking for a good investment for a Pelican, this is going to probably be an unpopular opinion, but this for the money is the best Pelican on the market. But they don't even, I say on the market, they don't even make them anymore. That's a Pelican Go. Unpopular opinion too, Pelican Go is far superior to TWSBI Go. In my humble yet most accurate opinion, TWSBI Go sucks compared to the Pelican Go.
That's some heavy stuff, brother. Welcome to the South.
The Pelican it's a piston filler, $25, and that's how much I bought. I liked it so much I bought a second one, and my wife liked it, so she ended up with it. But it's a smooth writing steel nib student pen, but it actually Pelican made a really good low end, affordable, great value in the Pelican Go, and they call it the Go long before TWSBI stole the name. I know TWSBI likes to think that a lot of people steal their stuff, and they're full of garbage. But look, I'm sorry, my opinion of TWSBI has been seriously tainted over the past couple of years between stuff that's constantly breaking and how they have led their business and try to exclude other people and other companies lately. I've been really irritated with TWSBI. So I've broken enough TWSBIs.
Kind of sounding like it.
Yeah, well, I've broken enough of them to swear them off, and for the money I paid for it, there's no way that pen should have broken. But I digress.
You go, Mike. Welcome to Technical Mystery. All right.
TWSBI goes. TWSBI. Although I agree with you, I don't like the way they've been behaving lately toward other brands a little bit, and I think maybe if they backed off now a bit and kind of settled down.
Yeah, they finally backed down because it was a losing proposition for them.
Yeah, there was a bad. I think the opinion of the pen community wasn't too happy with them either, in general.
No, that's why I like the guys at Narwhal a whole lot better, and I told them so after that they went with TWSBI.
Yeah, I think I have it laying here. Yeah, here he is. Yeah, I had to immediately, of course, go get the Narwhal.
The Narwhal Nautilus was a.
I love this Nautilus.
Yeah, I've got two of them, and the DC show they had just launched it, and so I got it it's like a purple ebonite, and I absolutely loved it. It was like $160. And with the little portholes on it, I was like, that's a good looking. I think they called it Berry.
This is not a
I bought another one though after Starry Night Resins made the acrylic for the Year of the Tiger pen, and being friends with them. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go support them, and I'm going to go buy one of those. So I've got another one of those, and I've always had good interactions with the guys from Narwhal. I mean, their original pen that they came out with, the only complaint I had is only came in fine nib. That's the only complaint I had. I mean, the value, the quality for what it was, and being their first real effort was actually a pretty good pen. And I inked it up once and it lasted me over 2 years. You know, it didn't evaporate. It didn't have any problems and it wrote well. And I finally ran it dry like over 2 years later. And I was like, you know what? I'd buy some more of those. I bought one for my wife. I bought one for me, and good value. And then to see them progress along and move along in the pen community. And every time I'm at a show, I stop and I talk to them, have great interaction with them, and they're always innovating, trying to do something, you know, the next big thing with them. So I can't complain. Matthew's got a Skullkill. I think that's how you pronounce it. Skykill. We picked it up at the DC show along with.
You were right the first time.
Skullkill, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not from I'm not from that area, so
that's okay. You were right the first time. You were right.
So Matthew's got one of those.
I'll tell you too. Most people don't get it right. You actually got it right the first time.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Matthew's got one of those, and we bought that at the same time I bought the Nautilus that was there, and you know the Berry Nautilus I probably have in my pen box to clean, and I know that the Starry Night Resins one I've got right over here behind me in my inked drawer. I keep a drawer full of all my inked pens, so I just pull out the drawer and pull them out and keep them in rotation that way.
I also have a narwhal pen. It's the X original or X large. It's
yes,
Galen leather exclusive.
I saw that, and you know what? I actually had put it into my shopping cart, and for some reason I never ended up ordering it. I was having some problem ordering for some reason with their website that day, I think, and so I didn't get a chance to get it. But I saw that, and I said, "Those are good looking."
Yeah, broad nib. I like it.
I found that their broad nibs actually do run more like a medium, and so that's what I got my both of my pens from them. Those are both broad nibs, and they write very well.
I think it writes extremely well, but my writes like a broad, true broad.
Mm.